Right, well, hello. Thank you so much for coming to the AIRR-NA Wednesday webinar series. Today we're talking about studying in Ireland. I am Bridie Troy. I'm with University College Dublin.
I'm Maggie Cardosi. I'm the North American officer for University College Cork.
And I'm Amanda Lunberg, and I am the North American representative for the Midwest for Trinity College Dublin.
Yeah, so as Bridie said, thank you all for joining us. I can see the numbers going up as we speak. So yeah, welcome to all of you. Thanks for taking a little bit of time out of your Wednesday evening to join us. As you might know from maybe attendance at some other AIRR-NA events, we are all representatives based in the United States. So if we're not exactly in your backyard, we're likely very much likely to be in your time zone or very close by. So yeah, shall we kick it off, ladies?
Let's go for it.
All right, cool. So today we are going to be talking a little bit about studying in Ireland. So I'm just going to go over a little bit about what we're going to discuss today. So we're going to talk a little bit about why you would even want to choose Ireland as a destination, and then also kind of an overview of the degree structures, what to expect from the application process, like the materials you need, things like that. Money matters. Pretty important, but equally as important, what campus life and experience is going to be while you're in Ireland and the student supports that you can expect to find. We're also going to talk a little bit about careers and life after graduation, and then also a little bit about the topics of diversity, inclusion, and sustainability, and how Ireland interacts with those very important issues that we definitely engage with here in the United States. So to kick it off, I'll talk a little bit about why on earth you would even want to come over across the pond to Ireland. Well, first of all, Ireland is known as a safe, friendly, and welcoming country. And when we mean welcoming, we really do mean that we are open to all people. So, whatever your background, your ethnicity, your gender identity, or what have you, we are open to you. And the people in Ireland are very friendly. I think all of us have traveled around quite a bit when we are capable of traveling into Ireland, and we've not had experiences that that contradict Ireland's friendly and welcoming atmosphere. We're also a pretty globally connected multicultural society. So, not only do lots of people come from outside of Ireland to travel, work, study, what have you, but there's also a lot of Irish people around the globe. Many of you in the audience right now might very well have Irish heritage. So, the strength of the Irish diaspora here in the United States. But our alumni also go all over the world. So we'll talk a little bit more about our degrees, but our degrees mean something. Our universities are ranked in the top 1% to 2% worldwide, and we have internationally recognized qualifications. So when you finish up a degree in Ireland, that degree is definitely going to take you somewhere. Although, if you want to stick around in Ireland, you can do that too, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. As you might know, we're an English-speaking country. We're also about to be the only English-speaking country in the EU, which is definitely very important to a lot of the businesses that choose to make their home in Ireland. Ireland is a hub for global business in a lot of different sectors, which I think Bridie is going to touch on a little bit later in the presentation. So that's something that is very important to our university life in terms of the engagement, for our students looking to to their careers afterward. And there's also something for everybody in Ireland. So our campuses are very diverse, whether you want large-scale suburban universities, a medieval university, college town, small town universities, you name it, we have it. And of course, our breathtaking landscapes. So if you are an outdoors person, or if you like going on long walks on the beach or hiking, these are all things that you can do in Ireland. Right. I'll pass it over to, I believe, Amanda, who's going to talk a little bit about our undergraduate degrees.
Yeah, so just to give you sort of a snapshot of what undergraduate degrees are like in Ireland. First of all, as you saw, that we have 9 major universities in Ireland, and the academic year structure is fairly similar to the US, with teaching starting in September typically, and typically finishing up in May, depending on your program. There will also be, of course, breaks for revision, for studying for exams and that sort of thing. We have 3 or 4-year programs across the country, depending on where you choose to study, of course, but offering a full gamut of subjects as well. So we'll have arts and humanities subjects, politics, business, STEM subjects, and several specializations as well. And also there will be some exceptions to the 4-year programs, include subjects such as professional law, medicine, veterinary medicine, which are longer programs, of course. And then one of the pathways we have is direct entry for our degree programs. And what this means is that you start your major from day 1. We have no general education requirements, which is lovely and a great fit for those who know what they want to do, but there's also some other flexible interdisciplinary programs that are offered at our universities as well. And then the course options are flexible too. So we have single honors degrees, which means you're just studying one subject, you have one major. Then we have joint honors degree pathways where you choose 2 subjects, and then you'll have the flexibility to choose whether you do a major and a minor with those 2 subjects, or a double major with those. And those usually are restricted to your discipline or to your school, just as a side note. But yeah, that's a little bit about how the undergraduate degrees are structured. And then I'm gonna pass over to Bridie for how to apply.
Great, thank you, Amanda. So applying to a university in Ireland is fairly straightforward. Irish universities, for the most part, utilize an academically inspired application review process. So we'll look at your high school transcript, your GPA, your test scores, and other standard symbols of academic achievement. This year, however, many universities are offering test flexible pathways to a degree. So your GPA and some supporting documentation will be sufficient to finding your place at an Irish university. One large difference to note when applying to an Irish school is that unlike some American colleges, you're not going to apply directly to the university as a whole. Instead, you'll be applying to specific disciplines and your chosen major. So for instance, you're not applying to Trinity College Dublin broadly, but you'd apply to Trinity College Dublin business program. But when you apply on the common application, of which most of us are, you can apply for up to 4 different degree programs for the one-time application fee. So that's really convenient. You can also apply directly on your chosen school's website. We are all on the Common App. And if you're interested in medicine or dentistry, look at Atlantic Bridge for your application and for some more guidance. Otherwise, you can reach out to any of us for help on navigating the whole application structure. Great.
All right, I'm going to start talking about the fun stuff, money. So what is actually pretty nice is that, degrees in Ireland do tend to be, in addition to being a little bit shorter in terms of completion, they are relatively competitive in terms of cost. So just to note that tuition fees are based on your program, and obviously these programs are going to vary, and the fees are going to vary based on the university. But across the board, with the 9 Irish universities that we have represented, the average cost of attendance per year is about $38,000 US. So, in comparison to some out-of-state options, which I've listed below, kind of depending on where you live, these might be schools that some of your peers are looking at. That's pretty competitive. So we're looking at the likes of, schools in, Washington, Delaware, and Michigan that are upwards of, 50, even up to $67,000 for one calendar year. So it's quite cost effective and definitely on par with what you would be paying for in-state tuition, if not a little bit less, depending on where you live. Also, a lot of the universities in Ireland will offer tuition-based scholarships. So if you are a high-achieving student, you may get some additional money taken off of your tuition costs. And then also, most of us are qualified to receive the federal loan program from the United States. So if, taking out federal loans is something that you and your family would like to do to meet the gap in your education costs, you may apply those loans to most Irish universities. And also for any of our military families out there, most schools will also accept military benefits as well. So that's just something to consider. Great, Amanda, if you want to talk about campus life.
Yep, going on to campus life. All right. So the first thing to say is that we will definitely offer a very similar experience to U.S. colleges, but definitely you'll have so much more than what you would have at a U.S. college, just being that you'll be an international student studying in Ireland. But a couple things just to note here. So we've got sports clubs and student societies, and then these are going to range quite widely. So our sports clubs will offer a huge variety of these: European sports, American sports, pretty much anything you can think of. And you'll also be able to play socially or competitively, depending on what your preference is. And then our student societies are basically kind of a fancy word for club. It's just how we distinguish our clubs from sports, and so that's what student societies means. And these range as well. We'll have academic student societies, we'll have special interest societies such as circus skills and juggling. I was just recently found out we offer at Trinity. But we'll also have language societies and other cultural and performing arts societies that you can join as well. So there's a huge range there of things to get involved with. And then the student union's another thing to really keep your eye out for. This is a vital resource for students. They are really the voice on campus, and they're there as a resource for you for all kinds of support, as well as to help out with sports clubs and student societies too. So that's something to definitely, you'll still have access to as part of your college experience. And then opportunities to travel. There are so many exciting places to visit when you're with us in Ireland. We definitely all say that being in Ireland, we offer a doorway to Europe. So it's a huge opportunity to be able to do some further traveling abroad, but then also as part of your degree program, you will have the opportunity to study abroad as well. So you're already be studying abroad, and you can study further abroad while you're with us. And these are going to be some different opportunities, whether it's with a few weeks or a semester or a year abroad. There'll be lots of different opportunities there. And then moving on to support, we absolutely understand that students, this is something that we all expect as part of the college experience as a student and also as staff. So there's lots of different resources that we have specifically for international students, but of course for all of our students on each of our campuses. But these are just a few here that you can see. So academic support, most of us offer personal tutors, we offer disability services and career services, which these three of course are very important in the first place. And then moving on, we have personal support as well. So peer-to-peer counseling, we have official sort of counseling, health services, chaplaincy, so lots of support in place for whatever your need might be. And then of course resources specifically for international students. I believe most of our campuses offer a global room or global hubs specifically for international students, where you can come and talk to global staff, other international students, and we all put on lots of events for international holidays and national holidays, of course, too. So you can get to know all the different sort of nationalities represented on campus. So you'll definitely have a fantastic time studying in Ireland. And then moving on to Bridie.
Great, thanks, Anna. So you've applied, you've gotten in, you've lived and you loved your campus experience, but now it's graduation. So what's next? Well, each of our universities in Ireland offers extensive career services to help you find a job in your field after graduation. Our degrees are 100% accredited in the United States, so you'll have the option of staying in Ireland, traveling throughout the world, or returning to the United States with a really prestigious international degree. At your Irish university, you'll receive these great career resources and supports, but also great alumni networking opportunities with people from around the world. So this will really help you in your postgraduate job search, whether you find yourself staying in Ireland, traveling Europe, or returning home after graduation. In the increasingly global world, international experience really increases your employability. In fact, a recent report found that out of 10,000 companies contacted, more than 80% actively sought out graduates who have studied abroad. So that's huge. When you have this on your resume, it really helps make you stand out from the crowd. Each of these Irish universities offer work placement opportunities, internship opportunities, and provide many resources to help you find this job. As we kind of touched upon, you will have the opportunity to stay in Ireland after graduating. The Irish government offers a stay-back visa, wherein a student may apply for a 12-month visa to stay in Ireland after graduation, and you can use this visa to search for employment, to travel, to study, or to just balance your various options. Again, we did mention this, I don't want to reinvent the wheel, but it's a huge point that Ireland is the only English-speaking member of the European Union. So this gateway to Europe for American graduates looking for employment really can't be understated. Ireland is considered the Silicon Valley of Europe, and local universities foster many connections with companies such as Google, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Pfizer. And these are right next to campus and work really closely with our career centers to find talent because they know that there's a lot of quality in an Irish degree. Each of these universities offer these unique connections with these main European headquarters that are stationed in Dublin and Cork and throughout Ireland, opening up possibilities for employment around the world. So studying abroad is a really great investment in your present and in your future, and graduation is just the beginning, so it's very exciting. But while you're here, let's talk about how inclusive it can be. I think Amanda and Maggie are both touching on this.
Yes, okay. So we wanted to touch on a few things that I know are really important to those of you in the audience about kind of finding a campus that is going to be, inclusive of everybody and inclusive of who you are as a person and a student. So Amanda and I are going to talk about a couple of initiatives or a couple of really cool things that Irish universities are doing to make sure that all of our students are feeling welcomed, no matter who they are and where they come from. So one thing that we're really proud of or very excited about is that all of the Irish universities have committed to being a part of a kind of initiative called Diversity Abroad. So Diversity Abroad is an organization that does exactly what it might sound like, promotes diversity in students who are going abroad. So we are the first country system who has wholly committed to working on these initiatives and making sure that our universities are, being inclusive and welcoming places for all students, of all races, ethnicities, gender identity, background, and ability level or disability level. So there are a lot of things that we're doing. One really cool thing that I definitely encourage you to check out is it's actually called the Inclusive Ireland webinar series. We just did one, I believe, last week with a few really wonderful panelists who either studied for a semester or their full degree in Ireland, talking about their experience as women of color in Ireland. So I definitely encourage you to check that out. But again, Ireland is the first country system that has fully committed to working with diversity abroad, which we're really happy about.
Right, so the next one on the list here we've got is diversity and inclusion on Irish campuses. So like Maggie said, all Irish universities welcome the increasing cultural diversity of our communities, and we're committed to that equal treatment of all students and staff. And a couple of things that we're doing as a whole is we're ensuring diversity and inclusion by committing to civic action points on each of our campuses, which is part of our wider university strategic plan. So it's ingrained in what we're doing every day, and it's something where we're increasing access for, we're engaging with, and we're empowering students in all underrepresented groups. So it's something that's really important to us on our campuses. And one example that I can give you, we've just started at Trinity, and I believe other campuses are doing something very similar too, is we've just started a new inclusive curriculum project where students will be able to feed into an accessible curriculum plan so that all students, no matter their background, will be represented in the curriculum itself. So that's something that we're doing across different universities, and is one example of what that looks like on campus.
Yeah, and one other thing that kind of on that point that I forgot to put on the slides, two things actually, but I'll talk about it here. is that, first of all, like each of our universities would have an access office or something very similar. So for students who either have, physical or learning differences, or, something, maybe you need a little bit more time on the test, things like that. If you get accommodations at your school right now, there is very likely something very similar at an Irish university. And all we ask is that you ask us about it, because we can definitely connect you with the people or the office who can help you navigate that process and make sure that you're having an educational experience that is tailored to your abilities. And the other thing I just wanted to make a note of is that Ireland, I think, has this reputation for being a relatively culturally and ethnically homogenous place. Traditionally it was up until maybe the last 20 to 30 years. But in the last several years, Ireland's makeup has changed. 1 in 6 people living in Ireland right now were not born there, which is very different than the way it was in, certainly my parents and my grandparents' time. So, the people living in Ireland, they don't all look the same. So that's something that I think in the university level too, and universities are certainly microcosms of what the overall population looks like. So that's something to kind of think about as well. But I'll move on to my actual point that I'm supposed to be talking about. Again, Ireland, in the last several years has become a much more progressive and liberal country than, it certainly has been in the past. And one thing to note is that Ireland was the first country in the world to legalize same-sex marriage by popular referendum. So when we mean that we are open and welcoming to everybody, we really do mean it. Each of our campus would, as Amanda mentioned, with, being committed to diversity and inclusion of all of our student and staff and faculty populations. We have clubs and societies and support groups for the students who, for LGBTQIA plus students who, or their allies who want to work together to make sure that these inclusivity and equality initiatives are taken seriously. And, Dublin Pride, Cork Pride, those are huge events. We were so sorry to see that those events couldn't go forward this year. But again, we are the land of the welcomes, and we really try to make sure that we mean that.
And then the final thing, just to be able to talk to you about, is our gender equality initiatives that we have on each of our campuses. So again, committed to equality and diversity. It's huge in every area of work that's going on within all of our campuses. But one really exciting thing to note is the Athena Swan Charter is a framework that's been used across the globe to support and transform gender equality within higher education specifically, but also within research. And we're really proud that that Ireland was established into the charter in 2015. So it's something that all of our campuses are really proud of, that we're part of this initiative, this framework. But then another example too is that the HEA in Ireland, which is the policy advisory body that provides advice to the government, established the Center for Excellence in Gender Equality in 2019. And objectives with this include ensuring sustainable acceleration towards gender equality through centralized support for higher education. So we have this even just from the very top level down, from the government all the way through to the university. So it's something that's really, really important to us. And then a final example as well is the SAGE project, which is Systematic Action for Gender Equality. And then this has been designed to seek stronger action on gender equality as well in higher education. So it's something that all of our universities are involved with. And then another thing that kind of feeds back into the other point that I made as well, it's like as you get talking, you remember these things, right, Maggie? Another thing to note as well, just on diversity, social justice, and gender equality, is that many of our campuses, probably all of them, I just didn't have a chance to look into every single one, but most of our campuses will also offer specific modules in these specific issues on these topics. So it's more than just being involved in the the student societies. It's much more than that. You'll have it as part of your degree program as well. It's another way that you can get involved here. But yeah, so and just a final small example. Where for gender equality, we at Trinity, I've recently just was looking some of this stuff up to be able to give you some specific examples tonight. And we have, as part of our strategic civic action plan, that we want to have at least 40%, if not more, of our chair professors to be female by the in the next couple of years. So there's lots of these very specific action points that our universities are rolling out across each of our campuses.
Sorry, was muted. So very much in line with this progressive attitude is Ireland's approach to environmental issues. So Ireland is actually a country on the forefront of environmental research. Within Europe, Ireland is in the top 5 countries for promoting environmental legislation and sustainability initiatives. One key way in which the country is doing this is their proactive involvement in the European Green Deal. And this deal introduces key policies to cut emissions and preserve the natural environment throughout the continent. So Ireland is behind a lot of this cutting-edge research that has informed this plan and has helped to create green jobs and alternative energies. So this really makes Ireland a perfect choice for college for those who are interested in preserving our future and helping expand these green initiatives. But not just for environmental studies students. This is great for those who simply want to reduce their carbon footprint while studying. And Irish institutions across the country offer opportunities to work on EU Green Deal initiatives, new policies, and to research new sustainable methods while you're in school. It's really an amazing opportunity. Additionally, Ireland is home to the world's first green college campus. University College Cork was the first university in the entire world to be awarded a green flag from the Foundation for Environmental Education. And this is such a huge deal and has just led the way for green campuses now across the world. And this aims to reduce carbon emissions. At UCC, it has enacted a 98% diversion from landfills. And this was very much led by the students and from the UCC administration listening to them. And that's just the beginning. So as a student in Ireland, you can really help lead the way to a more sustainable future and reduce your carbon footprint while you're at school, no matter what your major is. I see we're going into Q&A soon, so I see some of you have been throwing some questions into the Q&A box. Feel free to keep throwing them in there and we'll answer them as they come.
Cool. I've got one here from Amy, who wants to know a little bit about performing arts programs and if we offer conservatories as well. I would say, so I'll kind of kick it off, and then Amanda and Bridie, if you want to kind of pop in there too. So, you know, we certainly have performing arts programs, and it varies by university. We have, I know, you know, whether it's dance or music, and even some specializations within music. I know one of the universities, I believe it's the University of Limerick, who's not represented here today, you know, would actually offer a program in Irish dance specifically. But it's definitely something that students can do. And I know especially now, but even before COVID was such a huge issue, excuse me, you know, we would offer students the opportunity to audition or, you know, interview via video call. So if you couldn't make it to campus, you could do your auditions via Skype or Zoom or what have you. Bridie or Amanda, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, so we offer different drama, film, acting majors, and for ours, as long as you meet the minimum testing requirements, you don't have to audition before getting to campus. I know I was talking to one of our faculty and she said, I can teach anybody to act as long as they can prove that they have the motivation. So I really liked that. But yeah, it's really nice. A great thing about Ireland is that they are a huge arts music country. In fact, we're the only country in the world with a musical symbol as our national symbol. So you could definitely tell it's very much a forefront of the culture.
Yeah, definitely. I would say the same. It's ingrained in the Irish blood, a little bit of music, a little bit of dance. But the same, we offer several, you know, performing arts specializations as well. And we do have at Trinity, we do have a connection with the LIR, which is a conservatory in Dublin. So that if you were to come to do acting, you can. We have our programs kind of work together. So that's kind of to answer the question about the conservatory part of that. But yeah, absolutely. You'd be able to do all of your auditions or interviews all on Zoom, as Maggie said as well.
Great. So move on to the next question that I see here. What is the test policy as Americans are unable to take standardized tests in most places? Who wants to grab that one? Yeah.
I'll take that one. Yeah, so absolutely, we totally understand that it's been really hard during the pandemic for students to either take the test at all or retake the test if you weren't happy with your scores. So I believe most, if not all of our universities now are going to be test flexible or test optional, depending on where you're looking to apply. So absolutely, we will have that flexibility in place. If you haven't taken your test, we will be able to consider other criteria in lieu of the SAT or ACT.
And I would just say that, we're trying to be as flexible as possible. So we understand, there are some very unique circumstances this year. So, the best advice that I think we can give is to communicate, just the same as you would with American universities, kind of letting your individual admissions counselor know kind of what's going on. The three of us would kind of act similarly. So talk to us. And if there is something that's preventing you from whatever it is, let us know, and we can at least communicate that to campus. The next question here is maybe we can talk a little bit about kind of how to compare ourselves to American equivalents. So, Oxford is like Princeton, Imperial University is like MIT. Who would we compare ourselves to, guys? I think we can only speak for ourselves, UCD, Trinity, and UCC. Who wants to go first?
I really like the question. However, I think one of the great things about us Irish universities is we're so unique. I mean, I don't think there is a direct American translation of UCD, at least. I know when I went there, it was unlike any other school I had ever visited, anything I could ever imagine. So I kind of think that's maybe where our magic lies, or that our Irish universities are so unique.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, we can kind of give kind of basic indicators. So we don't want to say that we're exactly like UConn or Stanford or whatever, but, I can say that, University College Cork, we are a large research institution. We are, pretty urban, not right in the center of the city, but, just about 10 minutes away from the heart of the city center on walking distance. So, and the town itself that we're in Cork, relatively small. There's about 200,000 people in Cork altogether. So, if you are a student or a counselor who's looking for a, kind of a small city and an urban campus, lots of walkability, that'd be us.
Yeah, I definitely echo that. Like Maggie said, kind of towards the beginning of our introduction, you'll find every different kind of campus, within Ireland, whether it's urban or rural, or lots of different variety there. I think the only way that I could ever, like these guys said, we all have very unique campuses anyway, and it would be impossible to completely 100% compare to anyone. The only thing I can think of on the top of my head is we have a dual degree program with Columbia. So like curriculum wise, that's the indication of the sort of level of curriculum. It's the only way I can compare to any school here, though, because the experience will be completely different from Columbia, because being in such a much bigger city, New York being much bigger than Dublin itself. But there will be some similarities like that where you might be able to map it. But really, we are just very unique individual schools.
Yeah. And we're happy to kind of do some more digging. So if you'd like to, communicate with each of us individually, we can probably go into kind of more detail about our individual schools. But since we're a kind of Team Ireland today, we're going to move on to the next question. This is, I think, having to do more with COVID and kind of how we as a country are working on the how our education system is dealing with that, and whether our classes are in person or remote or hybrid.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure it was very similar for you guys, but correct me if I'm wrong. We were planning on being hybrid up until about a week before classes started. Then the government instituted a more restrictive lockdown. So right now we're online, what's nice about that is that if there were any American students who didn't feel comfortable traveling right now, a lot of professors, and I know this is true for most Irish universities, have been incredibly flexible about recording lectures or meeting with students in the middle of the night to accommodate for the time change. So they've definitely been trying to help the student support system even when you're not on campus. Right now, we're not exactly sure what next year is going to look like. So that's a big question mark over UCD, but I don't know if you have more specific answers for your schools.
Oh, I'd say the same. I think you said it perfectly. It's having that flexibility with the advice that comes down from government. Really, that's what we're following right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't have too much to add to that. You know, in UCC, we have gone remote for the remainder of the semester because of the kind of second wave that's hit Ireland recently. So, you know, we are prioritizing health and safety over everything else. And, you know, we're hopeful that we'll be able to go back to at least a hybrid model by the spring semester. You know, all indications in terms of kind of the vaccine developments are looking good, but, you know, we're just going to have to be flexible. But as Bridie said, you know, we're hopeful and we're doing everything that we can in terms of enforcing safety and health regulations at our individual schools to make sure that we can come back in person, kind of back the way it was as soon as possible. Moving on to the next question. So it's a little bit about student housing. What is it like and how, you know, what are the costs around student housing? I can start that one out. So one thing that it isn't like is like dorms in the United States. So most student housing is single rooms and it's apartment style living. So you get your own bedroom in an apartment that you share with, you know, probably about, you know, four to five other people. You might even get your own ensuite bathroom, but I'd say plan to share two shared bathrooms between yourself and your flatmates. And then you'll also have a kitchenette and a shared living space. So very much apartment style, none of this bunk beds, sharing a bathroom with 40 other people on your hallway, stuff that I certainly experienced at my American university. And there's no harm in that, but it's just a little bit different in Ireland. Yeah, Amanda and Bridie, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I know I often get questions about getting a meal plan, and I know at UCD we do offer a meal plan, but you have a kitchen, you don't need it, save your money. It's really nice that you have your own kitchen so that you can kind of make your own food and kind of get to know Dublin itself that way without being tied down to cafeterias. So that is another one big difference I found between an Irish campus and an American campus.
Yeah, I would agree with all that. I don't think I have anything specific to add.
Yeah, and around, I think the cost and finances with student housing, it definitely varies depending on where the individual apartments that you're living in at the university and where the university is located. So, you know, in some of the larger cities like Dublin or even Cork and Galway, housing might be a little bit more expensive because cost of living is a little bit more expensive. But, you know, elsewhere outside of the larger cities, you're going to be looking at, you know, significantly lowered cost of living. I think in UCC, we usually advise students to budget about 8,000 to 12,000 euro on top of their tuition fees to account for their living costs. But again, because your housing and, you know, how you choose to eat or where you choose to eat is going to vary quite a bit. It'll definitely depend on, you know, where you're living and who you are as a student.
Yeah.
Awesome. Let's see, one question here about, let's see. Language. So one thing to note is that, so Ireland does have two official languages, but the teaching language in Ireland is in English. So, you know, unless you're taking a high level of a language, you know, your instruction will be in English, although the Irish language is a really beautiful language and it is used in a lot of government capacities. So if you are, for example, on the bus in Dublin, all the stops will be announced in both English and Irish. So, you know, even if you don't speak Irish, you're probably going to pick up a few words here and there, just because it is in common usage, like I said, on buses and in you know, public places. There are also pockets of the country where the first language is Irish, and those places are called the Gaeltacht. So that is where Irish language is spoken primarily, and a lot of our universities, our international offices, might even arrange trips to go to those areas so you can kind of hear those languages that language being spoken. You can also learn, I know all of our universities would offer non-credit kind of beginners Irish classes. So, you know, if you have the time and the wherewithal, we definitely encourage you to get involved with that if you can, because it's a beautiful language with a really fantastic history.
I see, Maggie, there's a question in the chat as well. I just didn't want that one to get lost.
Oh, cool. Do you want to? Please do.
Oh, sorry. You know what? It's a direct question anyway. I will reply directly.
Oh,
but
okay,
it was just about applying directly or through the CAO, depending on, you know, if you're an American with a non-traditional U.S. diploma. But yeah, I'll put that in the chat so everyone can see.
Awesome. Thanks, Amanda. One thing, so let's see, we've got a question here about, let's see, how to research Irish schools. This is a very good question. So you can certainly find us individually, but a great resource to get you started is the Education in Ireland website. So Education in Ireland is kind of an umbrella organization that looks after all of us universities in the Republic. So, you know, they're going to have information about each of us, along with contact information, videos. Also, they've been putting on some really cool virtual events over the last few months. So, again, Education in Ireland, Google them, check them out. And also NACAC is a really great resource as well. So NACAC provides an international universities or international admissions guide that I believe all of us, I know there's a long Ireland section, so you can learn a little bit more about us. And even the federal aid website is going to have a directory of schools that are approved to receive federal aid. So those three areas are my kind of three go-tos when you know, advising people about how to research their options. Amanda and Bridie, do you have any other tips and tricks?
Those were good.
Exactly
Yeah.
what I was going to say. Yeah.
Cool. And then to follow up.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Maggie. I was just going to say, I did, because I was answering the question in the chat, I may have missed this, but with they mentioned the FIS guide. I don't know if, are your schools also included in the FIS guide? Because I know we recently updated our, I don't know what it's called, a posting, a page? Profile? Yeah, profile, there we go, in the FIS guide. So I just wanted to include that as another sort of additional resource for Irish schools.
Yeah, and then also just to clarify the last point in that question is that, so we don't have a central application like the UCAS for non-EU students. So you would have to apply to each of us individually. But as I think Bridie mentioned earlier on, some of us are in the UCAS system, or sorry, on the Common App. So you can find a few of us there, but then others you would need to apply directly. But, you know, again, there's only 9 of us. So, you know, it's a little bit easier to navigate that way. I have a question here about history and politics programs. You know, I would say that all of us have, I know actually all 3 of us have really strong history and politics programs. So, you know, please do maybe we'll follow up with you individually later. We'll get your information after the session is done, and then we'll tell you a little bit about us. But Ireland is a great place to study both of those subjects. Would you guys agree?
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, just in Europe in general, there's so much history, so you can really get hands-on experience there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and this is a really good question about students who are relatively unsure about what they'd like to major in. I'm going to kick that over to you guys, Amanda and Bridie, because I know you both one or both of you might have a very good answer for this.
Well, if I can jump in first, because I know a bit of Bridie's information, so I'll let you round it off. But definitely at Trinity, most of our programs you do have to apply to specific major, whether it's a single honors or a joint honors. But there is a kind of a third pathway that may not be as well known, and I think some of the other schools definitely offer something similar, but we have interdisciplinary courses that you can apply to where you're studying a broader range of similar subjects. So things like philosophy, political science, economics, sociology, things like that, they kind of get banded together. And then you can decide usually within your second year which of those you want to actually hone in on and actually major or major minor in, that sort of thing. But that's the one sort of possible way, specifically at Trinity anyway, that you can come in if you're not sure. It's, we don't have any kind of undeclared route as such. But I know that Bridie can tell you a little bit more about what they have at UCD.
Yeah, so we set up a liberal arts and sciences pathway to reflect kind of this American degree, and it would be most similar to your undecided degree because you can take your first 2 years there to sample across different disciplines, declare your major at the end of your second year. Once you declare a major though, I will caution this for most Irish universities, myself included, once you declare your major, it is fairly hard to switch majors. So that is something, that's why it's nice to apply for a couple different degree programs so you can learn more about them before you start and then make your decision before stepping onto campus. But we do have that extra option, the liberal arts and sciences, and I'm pretty sure a couple other schools in Ireland do as well. So reach out to all of us and just ask your options.
Yeah, great answer. The next question we have here is a little bit about kind of the different student populations in our international students. So all of us would have quite a high population of international students, not just from North America, but from all over the world. And there would be a good amount of students from Asia. I know that students from China and India in particular are two relatively large populations that we would see, as well as Pakistan, Malaysia, that's kind of UCC specifically, but I think, I think that might be relatively similar. So, yes, we definitely do have, other students from Asia. Some of our campuses may even offer Asia studies as, part of those dual majors or a minor, Chinese language, Japanese language, and then of course those wonderful clubs and societies that celebrate those cultures and might put on celebrations for the kind of different cultural holidays. Anything to add to that, guys?
No, I think that was
You
great.
said it very well.
Yes, you did.
Okay, cool. And while I catch my breath, maybe you guys can answer the next question about, student visas and, students with Irish citizenship who, or with dual Irish and American citizenship.
Yeah, I hear a lot of students with dual citizenship applying, and that's amazing. Kind of like the Irish diaspora that Maggie was discussing earlier. I mean, in America, almost everybody, it seems, has Irish roots. So that's great. You'll pay non-EU tuition, though, for the most part. And as a U.S. citizen, no matter your dual citizenship, you don't need a visa to study in Ireland. So it really helps the immigration process along. You just apply for immigration permission to reside in the state, which is fairly straightforward. And once you're here, you can work 20 hours a week during the school year, 40 hours a week during breaks, and then apply for that stay back visa like we talked about. So it's a very simple process and a lot easier than a lot of people think when they first imagine immigrating to Ireland.
Yeah, and then of course, with those with dual citizenship, you won't have to worry about any of the restrictions, of course, like with the working or having to register. If you have Irish nationality, you'll be able to come in just like every other citizen.
Then our last and final question is a little bit about religious identity in Ireland, kind of asking, how Catholic is Ireland, and is Catholicism still, very much the dominant religion as it was, earlier on in the 20th century?
Yeah, definitely. I think this kind of bounces back to that inclusivity that you and Amanda talked about earlier. Yeah, Ireland, it was started with a lot of Catholic traditions, but over time that's very much evolved, and it's an incredibly diverse country now, with people from all different beliefs, ideologies, and just a lot of acceptance all throughout.
Yeah, I think it's definitely like culturally Catholic in a way, in that you know, like my friends who are Irish, you know, maybe they aren't particularly religious themselves, but they still elected to get married in the Catholic Church. My granny goes to Mass every Sunday, as any good granny will, but it definitely, I think, religion is definitely, or the Catholic religion is, it's still there, and it's still very much a part of the culture, but it's not quite the main identity marker as you know, Ireland maybe would have been, you know, at its founding about 100 years ago. You know, I think we've seen, you know, as we mentioned, with kind of the diversity of people in Ireland now, you know, a lot more different religions, you know, Muslim religion, you know, Judaism, Hinduism, Confucius, and all of that coming in. So again, very diverse. And one thing to note too is that our universities are all, while they may have been founded as kind of one religion or the other, our institutions are no longer religiously affiliated. So again, for students and faculty and staff who are religious, we have that support system, and we have those resources there, but it's not part of our funding anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. I was the only thing I would really add to that, because it was perfectly said, is it's probably the first question I usually get asked at Trinity is whether there's a religious affiliation. So you guys perfectly said it, that it's no longer there on the institutional level.
Great. With that, so if there are any last minute questions that anybody wants to pop into the Q&A, you know, speak now. But so we'll give you just another minute to pop those in if you like. But otherwise, we just wanted to say thank you so much for joining us. You know, I enjoyed the conversation. It was wonderful to see so many really diverse and interesting questions from all of you. And I also wanted to plug again that while we're getting to the end of the Wednesday webinar series, we still have 2 left on December 2nd and December 16th around kind of the general experience of students abroad and writing the college essay for international universities. So tell your friends and family, sign up yourselves, and we would love to have you. But yeah,
before we leave, Maggie, I see someone's got a hand up in the chat.
Ooh.
I just wanted to make sure that we didn't miss a question. Melissa, did you have a question you wanted to ask, or did you already, was it already answered? Just wanted to double check. Oh, her hand's down. It's okay. I just wanted to make sure
good.
before we ended things.
Good. Thank you so much, Amanda. All right. Cool. All right. Well, thank you guys. Just wanted to do one more check to make sure we didn't miss anybody. But thank you again. And, you know, we hope that you will engage with these webinars, and we'll be following up shortly. And also this webinar will be posted on the AIRR-NA website. So keep an eye out for that. If there's anything you missed, you can watch us again. But
thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks. Have a great night.